is Papa.
Okay, we are live, and we have our granddaughter with us today. That's Greer, sitting on Melissa's lap right there. So if you hear some little,
Say hi.
Mackenzie. Mackenzie's on vacation right now, and we are grandparents watching Greer as we move along. I wanted to give just a little thought. Really weird. Every time spring comes around, we hit spring before most other places in the country, and it's like a change in the air. It's like a light goes on a lot of people's heads, and I start getting calls wanting to build, wanting to this, wanting to do that, and it's interesting how that works. As soon as you get, and you get that light bulb that goes off as you move up the equator. You get into the colder climates, and then the spring starts to hit there, and as the spring starts to get closer to Canada and all that, the light bulb goes on over the next couple of weeks as we get closer to spring or an early spring. And so a lot of people are thinking, a lot of people are ready. Some are just starting. And here's what I want to give an idea about, something to think about in your mind, that when you're going to build a home and you're planning to build a home. I was just sitting down with a friend of mine, and he wanted some advice. And, he's actually a general contractor, and he has never built a home from foundation up. He's just a remodeler. He does repairs on decks, things like that. But his wife came to him, and his wife says, "We need to build a home. It's time. We need to build a home." And he's a little bit skittish about it. And I sat him down under the tree. I said, we're going to have a taster's choice between two men. We're going to talk. We sat under my tree, and I said, Greg, his name's Greg. I said, Greg, you're going to build a home. You're going to build a home for your wife, and here's why. You have been itching to build a home from start to finish. And you want that as your resume. You want that feather in your cap. You want that confidence as a general contractor, right? So you're going to do it. You're going to do this for your wife. And I'm going to give you two reasons why. And he's kind of a very a conservative guy. Yeah, Greg, you're a tightwad. I can say that. He knows he is, and he won't mind me telling you that. He's very, very tight with his money. And I says, Greg, you're going to build a home for your wife, and here's why, and here's how you can feel very comfortable in doing that. When you buy a piece of land, you're going to use a realtor, and you're going to have a realtor fee. And my wife can chime in on this. But when you build a home, you're not going to have that additional realtor fee on the build cost of the home. So right there, we've talked about this before. I'm going to drive home today. Okay. So if you have 6% taken off the cost of the actual build of the home, that's a big plus. Now you're going to have
it's actually 3%, Keith, 3% or less.
3% or less. So now you have the builder fee. That could be at the low end 10%. At the high end, it could be 23%. So imagine taking, let's say, 16% off the total cost of any market rate home you see out there. Just go out there in the market, all right? And if you can match their costs dollar for dollar or come close to it, you can take off 16% of the cost of that home without doing anything yourself. And I had to reiterate, I know you're a DIY expert. I had to tell this to my friend. I says, just do the things you really, really want to do, the things you know how to do. The rest you can sub it out. Now, if 16% savings is not good enough for you, I'm gonna shake your head. That's good enough. And so he got confident. He felt like he could do this, and that's the way I tell a lot of owner builders. And my wife and I just had lunch with some bankers today, and they don't lend to owner builders. Why, honey? I'll let my wife explain why they don't lend to owner builders.
Well, in their experience, they were saying that they were taking too long because they were trying to do too much, and they couldn't get enough subs to come and see them. Mm-hmm. You can finish it. Okay.
Yeah, and it's the reasons why I tell all my owner builders, call yourself a builder, not an owner builder, just a builder from the get-go. Get an email that looks like it, get a little logo that looks like it. And if you can't get on ChatGPT and create a little logo real quick, I don't know you need to have your head examined. So a lot of it has to do with the DIY mentality. And I told this to bankers. I says, I've seen owner builders in two different categories. One category is they really want to maintain the quality. They really want to build a home with their concerns and ideas and value that they want to put in the home. They don't necessarily want a need to financially, although it's a big plus and it gives them the added finances to do extra things they really want. But they're most concerned with the actual end product. The second type of owner builder is so cheap, they want to do everything without any extra cost. And that's the owner builder that runs into problems. That's the owner builder that puts a lot of other owner builders to shame, and why there's a negative feeling out there in the market, because they take forever. They try to do everything they can, and they really push back the time frame on getting things done. And they can tend to not watch their budgets very well. So keep that in mind. What kind of owner builder are you? Are you the one that's so tight wound that you're going to try to save like turning blood into a turnip, or a turnip into a blood or juice? It's not that easy. Versus, I'm going to make a savings alone just by being my own builder. And I just want to make sure I have the quality I want. So keep that in mind. There's one that causes a problem for a lot of people, and there's one that goes at it with the right attitude. So let's take some questions here, and I may reiterate that and talk about it, but it's the spring is in the air. A lot of people are thinking about being a builder, to build their own home, and that's great. Some are ready. They've been working since October and November and December with planning, engineering, geotech, architectural selections. They've been working that whole time through the winter, and they're getting ready to break ground. Some are just starting that process, which is fine because they'll break ground in the summer if they push through and get everything done that they need to get done. So let's go ahead and take some questions here. This is from Michael. Hey, I haven't seen Michael for a while. For those working with Omniblock, it seems that one, electricians struggle with box installation, and two, foam was replaced by grout in many cells, reduces insulation value. Any mitigations for these? Yes, two things to keep in mind. That cell that is being filled up, it still has foam on the other side. So Omniblock has a double thermal break inside the block. So if you were to look at an Omniblock, it's got foam on both sides. Every once in a while, one side the foam is taken out because that's your rebar and your concrete. So you still have that thermal break, and you still have that high efficiency on the other side of that. The other one is the electricians. If they are using the right box, they should be fine, and just a metal box. And if they're using Smurf tube, that's really going to be a problem for them. They have to have rigid conduit, not flex conduit. And that's what I have found that a lot of electricians have a problem with. If they use the rigid conduit, then the concrete hits it and it doesn't pop off. It doesn't cause problems. But if you use the flimsy Smurf tube, it can easily pop off that box, and then you got problems. Those are the two areas I would look at. And when it comes to electricians, most electricians should be efficient with this type of electrical install because it's a commercial grade install. Most commercial buildings, a lot of them are CMU block wall. It's the same electrical install. So when you get out there looking for electricians, ask them, hey, have you ever done electrical inside a CMU wall? If they have, good, they can go right into an Omniblock wall, and it should be just fine. It's just a matter of asking the right questions. Okay, good question. Next. This is Alex HLLC, whatever. Greetings. I'm in between two choices for under house ceiling. Coastal house, 100 feet from the ocean. House elevated 10 feet. That's good. Everyone using outdoor drywall for ceiling. I want to use plywood. Any advice? Do not use drywall. Two reasons. First of all, the screws and the nails, either or they use, are going to rust. That drywall will sag and it will absorb moisture. Don't do it. I would just use the plywood. And if you can use some stainless steel or galvanized nails for installing that, all the better. You're going to have a huge amount of salinity in the air, and that's going to work its way into the product, into the nail structure. I'll even add on top of that that you want to make sure that you have no wood exposed on the flat surface. You can have wood on the side of the house, but if you have an eave covering it, all the better. Every night, no matter where you are in an ocean environment, you're going to have every night you're going to have moisture fall to the ground. Your house is going to get wet every night. Now think about that. Think about your home getting wet with the dew of the ocean every night, 365 days a year, for the most part. There could be some dry times where it may not be that bad, but you're going to have to build with that in mind. So I did a video on this in Newport Beach a couple of years ago. I actually walked through several homes, and termite problems are big if you don't protect and maintain the water or sheeting off of your home. There's a lot of factors to consider. And if you can use flashing to cover your metal or even your eaves or whatever it may be, all the better. But yeah, good question. Good luck with that one. Keep us up to speed on where you are. We'd love to hear what's happening with you. Okay. Modular home cheaper than stick built. No, but it's not going to hold its value. You know, my wife could really confirm on this. If she had an agent, if she was representing somebody and they had a modular home versus a stick built home, the stick built home is going to hold its value much better than a modular.
And financing is actually harder on a modular home sometimes, depending on the age.
Right. And it has to do with not having a permanent foundation, to be honest with you. And I've even seen people try to put a modular on a permanent foundation, but it just doesn't work. And I don't like the word stigma, but I would use a lesser value perception on a modular versus a full up foundation stick built home. Because when you're on a permanent foundation, that really holds its weight a lot better than something modular. I'd love to see modulars come along. I'd love to see them put on a slab on grade. I'd love to see them, but they carry with them the history of the single wide, double wide trailer mentality. And they've tried to get away with it by calling it modular, but it just hasn't worked right. And I'm maybe it might change in the future. And there's a lot of tiny homes that are trying to change that, but if it's not permanent on a permanent foundation, it's going to have that devalued perception. It's just you're going to be fighting it left and right. Okay. Good question. Michael, for OmniBlock, can we still use one foam insert on corners, bond beams, and cells around windows and doors, or does the grout rebar need to occupy foam both insert cells? Keep in mind that what you're doing is you're reducing the heat or cold transfer on a greater degree over the entire wall. Okay. And so with that in mind, you're going to still have some cells, and it's a cell like that. It's a regular cell. It's about that big, and it's going to have rebar and concrete in there. I wouldn't worry about that too much. It doesn't affect the overall efficiency of the build. It's just a structural component of the home. If you were in the Midwest or where you have high hurricanes and anything like that, that OmniBlock is going to be sticking around. It's not going to go anywhere. You may have some problems with the roof, but the whole foundation, it's in the whole wall structure is really, really solid. So you're eliminating a major, it's like windows. Okay. We could say the same thing about windows. Oh my goodness, that's only about a half-inch thick. Isn't there any way we can fix that? Because you go up to a window and cold night, you're going to feel that. So windows are the biggest culprit for losing energy. Remember, heat chases cold. So during the wintertime, if you got a cold window there, the heat's going to constantly change that. You got argon gas, you've got your double pane, you've got all that to help break that transfer to some degree. But overall, your windows are a far greater culprit. So I wouldn't worry about a small cell structure that's structural in your OmniBlock when your windows are the worst culprit for losing energy. That's why when you build a home, when you design a home, you take this building science modules that I have in my course. It talks about passive homes and trying to make sure you design your home to accommodate the passive collection of heat during the course of the day. So it's very, especially for a lot of you building in colder climates. Okay, this home I'm in, the sun comes up on an angle this way, and I get sun in the early morning in my master bedroom, comes up over my office and goes into the great room, and I'm capturing sun all day long. And that's called passive solar. And the heat never goes on during the day. In fact, it warms up our house to about 77 to 76, 78 sometimes in the wintertime. And that's not bad. Sun goes down, takes a couple of hours before that heater starts to kick back on. So grabbing your passive solar, that's the biggest benefit you can. And don't worry about the small things. Okay, good question. Looking at building a solar passive house, any advice and recommendations? Yeah, it depends on what always tell us where you're building, because it really tells me a lot about your environment. For example, if you're building the south of Florida, it's not so much passive solar or as much as having some nice breeze through the home, because you're not going to have any need for heat. You might have a need for cooling here and there. But if you're in the far north, Midwest, far north Dakotas, up there in upper parts of Wyoming, upstate New York, places like that, then you're going to be thinking about, oh my goodness, how much sun can I get inside this house 8 months of the year? And that sun is going to be dipped low on the horizon during the wintertime, and then it's going to be up higher in the summertime. In Arizona, it's just the opposite. You don't want as much sun in the home. In fact, you want to keep the sun out as much as you possibly can, especially in the Phoenix area, because it's mostly just nice and toasty most of the time. It can be somewhat cool in the evenings, but it's warm throughout the entire day. So how can I have a larger eave to keep the sun out, even though it's in the wintertime? Whereas in the far north, you want to have a shorter eave. You really want that sun in the home as much as you possibly can. You can see what I'm talking about. You get a compass, get your phone, find out where north is, find out where east is, where the sun rises, that kind of stuff, how you can capture that. And that's going to be your that's called passive solar. That's how you're trying to grab as much of the sun during the course of the day. And the rest of it is building science, the envelope of the walls, having as much heat that can build up and be maintained in the wall. That's why OmniBlock is so powerful on the inside. When you heat that home on the OmniBlock on the inside, you've got almost a full inch of concrete on the inside of that home. That's called a thermal bank. And you're banking all that heat inside the home so that it takes very little energy to maintain it, because you've got this bank that's storing it. Whereas most homes are just a 1/4 inch of drywall, not even a 1/2 inch of that. And then that is going right into your insulation and right through your walls. You're not banking it as much as you are in an OmniBlock wall, because the density of that bank to hold and capture cool in the summer and hold and capture heat in the wintertime. So again, passive solar is grabbing the sun, and how can you bank that? How can you store that? For example, here's a good thought. Let's say the sun's coming up, okay? You're in the Dakotas, North Dakota, and you want to capture as much sun as you can. Would you put carpet down, or would you put tile or hardwood flooring? You'd actually probably put tile or some hardwood flooring, so that heat can actually build up in the floor and go into the slab foundation and warm that slab. If it's just a reflective material like a light carpet, it may not be able to penetrate and get into the thicker density of the slab. That's really a lot about what passive solar is: grabbing sun and putting it into a dense mass so you can capture that and utilize it during the evening and throughout the rest of the day. So think in those terms and go to those courses I've got, and it's really going to help you a lot. Again, it's in the self-managed package. There's a three course little module. I was younger back then, and you'll see I had a little more hair. But I go through that whole process and give you layouts and samples and stuff like that. Okay, good question. I can't say that. User blah 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 blah. Something something something. I saw your video of the new build with polished floors. You asked for pea gravel for the slab for a better look. Will such a floor save money over tile floors? I liked it. Yes, it would. And here's a couple of reasons why. It's a flatter surface. Tile is going to have the grout. You're going to have those grout lines, and the tile is less permeable, whereas the tile is more permeable. That meaning the concrete is less permeable, and the tile is more permeable. You just have to insulate the outer wall if you are in a colder climate. We're in a super dry climate, mostly moderate and warm, and so we didn't worry about that too much. But yeah, ask for the pea gravel, and then you can polish it, and it exposes that aggregate. If you have a big aggregate in there, it makes it a little more difficult, and you still can do it. But the color popped on that, and it really looked really nice. So good question. Student here, building in Western Washington, stem wall foundation is being finalized. Would you recommend vapor barrier before framing starts while the crawl space is open? I would recommend that whatever you want to do to that crawl space, you get it done before the framing. And I'm going to give you a couple of pointers here, okay? At the very, very least, clean it all up, rake it smooth, and put some pea gravel in there. Just something so that it's easy to get underneath the crawl space and work and maintain and manage your mechanical. There's no better time. Once the framing gets started, oh my goodness, nobody wants to get underneath it after that. If you do a vapor barrier, get it in. It may be, there's a lot of different companies who can do that. Ask them who they recommend or what they recommend. But here's the problem. If you do it too soon, then you're going to have plumbers, HVAC contractors, electrical contractors, low voltage contractors, gas contractors, all coming underneath there, drilling in there and creating a huge mess on your vapor barrier. So that's why they typically do it after the home is done, but at least you can get it graded and smoothed out and get something nice down there so that it's easy to get down there. How many of you have been under a crawl space and it's got all kinds of boulders and garbage and even leftover construction material because they didn't clean it before that? Here's one other piece of advice. When you do cap that crawl space and you're framing over the top of it, get a cut-in hole as soon as you possibly can, because you are building over live ground. You're building over ground that has received moisture over the past 6 months, year or more. That ground is moist. That ground hasn't dried out. Even if you're in a dry, arid climate, you would most likely have received moisture on that open, bare ground at some point in time. Now, why is that a problem? Because if you seal that crawl space and you think, oh, we're just going to frame over and we'll get the mechanical guys in there later. If you let that sit for a couple of weeks and there's moisture in there, you will build up mold on your frame structure. Mark my words, it will happen, even in some arid, dry climates. Some of the worst nightmares I've seen are framers who frame over a stem wall and they don't cut in for an access panel soon enough. And as a result, there's no way to keep it arid and dry in there. So I could tell you multi-million-dollar mistakes that were done because builders didn't cut that in, and the clients found out about the mold, and it was not fun cleaning up. So I'll say no more. So good question, really good question. This is from Marceli Marban, Eminem. Do you recommend sealing the OmniBlock walls in the shower that will be exposed to water? Yeah, just you put some Red Guard on there. You don't want to put Dense Shield, which is the drywall equivalent. Just ask your tile guy if he can do some Red Guard on there. He'll know what that means. There's other products you can put on there. That's just a good thing to do because concrete's porous. If you constantly take a shower in there, that moisture can work its way over time, and then you could build up moisture on the other side of the first wall of that block wall. So yeah, they're going to want to seal that up. Okay, good question. Yeah. Okay. Analog, digital 53. Okay, I like that. We are currently in the pre-drywall stage. Some of our walls have plywood sheathing installed for shear wall support. Okay, some of our walls have plywood sheathing installed for shear walls. That's fine. You're just going to drywall right over it. That's all. Just drywall right over it and you should be fine. Okay. On those walls, we plan to finish them with either tile or plaster. Should the tile or plaster be installed directly over the plywood, or should drywall be installed over the plywood? Do some dent shield drywall. It's a specific drywall for keeping out mold buildup behind drywall or even behind the wall. You don't want to have, because again, concrete's porous, and if you're putting water up against tile in those grout sections, it's going to work its way in to the plywood, into the substrate framing structure. You don't want that to happen. So you want to stop. You want a stopgap. And you can put dent shield in there that will help, or you can put red guard in there. I would typically put dent shield, which is the drywall equivalent, and then red guard it too. And you have that protection. I'm going to tell you, a lot of people get away with not doing the right things when it comes to showers. And if you have a family and that shower is being used 3 to 4 times a day, it has very little time to dry out. And when it has very little time to dry out, that's when things can build up. Okay. Now think about that. If you think the shower is going to get some heavy use, you're going to want to make sure you have the proper protection on that shower. And it will be a lifesaver over time. It will make your shower last much, much, much longer. Okay. Good question. It's the MK2209. Okay. I put hydronics in my slab. Slab is 24 by 30. Have been considering adding a solar hydronic panel in my PV array. I'm in central Missouri. Do I need to plan for a place to dump heat midsummer? That's a really good question. You're pulling heat out in it in the summer is what I'm understanding. So I wonder if there's a heat pump exchange that could remove heat in a liquid form and take it and expel it outside. That's basically what a condenser unit does. The condenser actually pulls the heat from the inside, cools off the inside. The heat is captured and it goes into a condenser and it's expelled on the outside. I'm wondering if they could do the same thing with a liquid. That's a good question. I'd have to find out. I'm almost certain they could do it. I just haven't seen a technology yet that's designed to handle that. That's basically what a Volkswagen Beetle Bug used to be. Those Beetles were oil cooled. So the oil was expelled to the outer perimeter of the engine and through the coolant system. And as a result, it would dry, the air would blow over it, cool that extremity, and then the oil would be taken back into the engine. It's kind of like the same thing here, kind of a smart heat pump, but moving liquid heat out to cool off and then back in. I don't know, talk with an HVAC contractor. That's something I'm going to ask my contractor next time I see him. Good question, though. Thanks for the great explanation. I'll pass the solar home. I'm in Canada. Very cold winters for 2 to 3 months and hot summers for 2 to 3 months. Which heating type would you suggest for slab foundation? Really good question. First of all, you're going to want to have your heat coming from below, not from above. If I'm building, I build in 2 temperate zones. So if I'm building down in the desert and St. George, then I'm going to have my heat from above come and try to heat the room during the winter. If I'm up at the high elevation, which is a colder elevation, which is where you are, you're going to want to heat the airspace from the bottom up. So if you are in slab on grade, it might not be a bad thing to do all your forced air underground. I don't know what your soils are like. I don't know how rocky it is and all that. but that might not be a bad solution. Or you actually put a heating element system inside the slab. I'm not a fan of that model because if you ever move a bathroom or if you ever try to do anything in the foundation, you cut that, the entire system is toast. That's why I'm not a fan of heating systems inside the house or inside this slab. Even the floor heating units that I've seen that are all built in, it just makes remodel and changing of your mind later an absolute pain, literally an absolute pain. I'm more interested in forced air. We know where it's coming from. It's never going to be a problem. If you have to cut into the foundation, fine. You pretty much have to avoid those vents, which go down straight, and you have plenty of room to do things. So that's why I've done several videos on this. I did a home up in Cedar where I did an underground forced air. It worked out great, and they're a much colder climate. Talk with your HVAC contractor. A fully encased PVC underground forced air system. That's my bread and butter. That's what I would choose if I was in a cold climate like you. But check it out. Ask around. See if they're interested in that. I saw your video about designing a home for future additions when the budget is tight, like a future casita. When would you recommend that versus just building within your budget and selling later? Trying to think here. I just finished a home. Go to my YouTube channel. It's the home that just came up. We finished it a week ago or whatever. It has an ADU built into it. It actually has 2 ADUs built into it. Now, do you think it's more valuable to resell a home with more square footage or to resell a home that's got a built-in monetization revenue source in the home? I'll ask my wife to give some feedback on there. If she was representing clients, which would be easier, to sell a home that's a new home that also has a built-in rental, or just sell a home that has more square footage? Which one would market better?
The rental. If you could rental, because the lenders have programs that if they know that there's a rental, they can add that income in. Mm-hmm. And so you can qualify for more.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd go that route.
If it's in your budget, just build it out.
Yeah.
If it's not in your budget, you can't build it out.
Well, here's something to think about. In most jurisdictions, all you need is a functional bathroom and a functional kitchen. You don't need to finish everything else off. I'm the kind of guy that loves to go for the most shell that I possibly can. I go for that. I'm pushing for the biggest shell that I can to meet the most efficient needs of the family or future they could ever imagine. But once I go for that shell, I start to back off on costs. Oh, we don't need to finish that. We don't need to do that one. I got this shell. Because how hard is it for somebody to come in and throw maybe a little kitchenette or something in later, or flooring in later, or whatever it may be. The more you can grab that shell structure, the better off you are. And when you watch that video I did a complete tour, and luckily we had the funds to finish off a lot, just basically everything is all finished off. But we were prepared not to have to finish some of that stuff off, given some other things that the city was making us do, like adding a new curb and gutter and asphalt. We were able to get it all done because we had a good budget on the thing. But if you're tight on budget, look for the most shell that you can capture. I can't begin to tell you how important that is. Okay.
Yeah, I'll try and put the video in the chat. So if you haven't seen that video, you can watch it.
Okay.
Here's the next one.
Okay. What about not for a shower? Tile for kitchen, plaster for family room. Yeah, plaster on the family room's fine on the wall. What about not for a shower?
Sorry, I'll have to go back and give you what they asked for. If you remember the question, it's this same person.
Should I tile or plaster? Well, Plaster is the same thing as drywall. Basically, it's tape and texture. But inside the kitchen, you'll want to plaster that wall because how else are they going to put the tile on the wall? They need to have something. And so what they do is they put a thin set on that. It binds to the tile, and then they can put the tile, binds to the wall, and then they can put the tile onto that. So you don't need to do the red guard. You don't need to do that, especially if you have a backsplash. So if you have a backsplash that goes up 4, 5, 6, 7 inches, any water that hits, it's going to hit the backsplash. You're not going to really affect the tile on the wall itself. So you don't need to protect that as much. Now, I think that's what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. Plan for solar hydronic loop is supplemental winter heat and possibly a loop for domestic water. Yeah. What you're doing is you're capturing the constant temperature at a certain depth. So if you go down 6 to 8 feet in that range, depending upon where you are, you've got a constant temperature. And in fact, it's closer to like 65 degrees or thereabout, which is really warm when you think about it. I've got water that comes into my home and it's much colder than 65 degrees. So if I had it run underground, then I'm putting less stress on heating. And as a result, I'm less cost to heat that water. It's the same thing here, hydronic loop, supplemental winter heat, where you're actually grabbing some, like if it's minus 30 degrees outside or some crazy teens degrees, and yet it's 65 degrees at 8 feet below, you're going to go grab some of that 65 degrees out in the basement or down below, bring that in and help offset some of your costs. So it's like he says, it's a supplemental winter heat. It's not a full winter heat. It's just a supplemental one. And yeah, it's not bad. They do that with water too. Take a copper wire, copper pipe that's highly conductive, run it through the ground several hundred feet, bring it back. When it goes in, it's cold. When it comes out, it's semi, lukewarm or just a little bit on the cold side, but not super, super cold. So yeah, you just have to weigh the cost on that and figure that out. But good question. Yeah, I'll look into that. Have been looking into a larger buffer tank for domestic hot water. Yeah, and it's not bad to store it too. If it's colder on the outside, you bring that water to the inside, even if it's acclimating to the water temperature on the inside, it's still you're increasing the temperature of it while it's inside the home, kind of a larger tank or diaphragm. So good question. Hello, was there a reason to pour a 5-inch pea stone thick slab over a 3-inch regular slab? Thank you, Kay. That's interesting. So pour a 5-inch pea stone slab over a 3-inch regular thick slab. Yeah, think of it this way. When you put rebar in it, number 3 rebar, 3 feet on center, and then you have your cut marks every 4 feet. I'm controlling the cracks in the foundation. I'm forcing most of those cracks in the 3/4 inch cut crack or control crack in the foundation. Now, by going a little thicker on the slab, I can control it a little bit more because that's the exposed floor. I only had some micro hair cracks in a few spots, but other than that, the floor came out looking really pretty. And so it's just a choice. I could go 3-inch slab and risk the potential of that slab cracking in all kinds of ways. I'm just trying to control the quality. That's all. Okay. Good question. Hello. What size electrical panel do you think we'll need for 200 amps? Even if you have a detached ADU, a car garage with car lift, future apartment over garage, and a possible future detached ADU, you should not need more than 200 amps. And if you do go with 400 amps, you're gonna pay for it. And you don't need to pay for that extra 400 amps. Electrical companies will charge you greater fees because of the amperage you're trying to take. So just stay with the 200 amp. This house here is on a 200 amp. I have a home in St. George and I've got a twin home, basically. One up front where my mom stays, and I have one in the back, and then I have a huge shop in the back with an apartment above it and a greenhouse with all kinds of pumps going all the time. All that is on 200 amps. Okay. You can do that, especially with LED lighting, but it's back in the day, it might have been a little harder, but things are so far more efficient than they've ever been. And as a result, you can load up on those 200 amps more now than you could have back in the day. Good question. Care Beezer, soccer player. I had my mason finish brick work on the exterior, and he pressure washed the house, and water was seeping in. Yeah. All right. That's because the probably you didn't have a rain screen on there. This is hard to explain, but on masonry on a home,
keep reading.
Windows were not caulked. That's why. Okay.
Keep reading.
Okay. Any other concern? Yeah. Well, that water is coming at an angle, at a right angle, and it would work its way into the home. And if it's a new home, maybe you can talk to the builder and say, hey, these windows were not caulked. It's kind of a bad call. That's why. But I'm worried about the paper they used behind the masonry. What kind of paper did they use that is that vapor permeable? Typically, it's a double sheeted tar paper, which doesn't have that permeability to it. It just gathers on the outside of the paper and works its way down to the J channel and weeps out that way. So I'm concerned about the actual structural material behind that rock wall. And if they did do a scratch coat, if you know what a scratch coat is, it's paper, wire mesh, and some concrete put on it. It's got scratches on it, so you can bond and put a masonry product to it pretty easily. If they didn't put that paper behind that wire mesh, then water is working its way right through. But I think it's getting through your windows. That's where it's coming through, and it's leaking out that way. So somebody didn't install your windows right. Good question. I had my plumber, this is from Care Beezer, soccer player. I had my plumber tie our septic discharge pipe into our main sink water line, and he said, can't read it, there was nothing to worry about. What do you think? So I had my plumber tie our septic discharge pipe into our main sink water line, and he said there was nothing to worry about. I'm trying to figure out why you would need the main sink water line. You mean the drain line? If it's the drain line, not the actual water supply line, and it's the main line, you'll have a P-trap that will come up before that sink. So any fumes from the septic discharge or anything won't work its way up into the sink. I think that's what you're talking about. So it can't get up. The fumes can't get up because of that P-trap. But that's if I'm putting it together the right way you're talking about. So I hope I am. So good question. Any experience putting a makeup air system in for a larger range? Any concern putting that up high in a vaulted living room area? You don't want your makeup that area that high. All right. You are talking about incoming air, not exhaust air. So if your exhaust is above the furnace or above the stove, your makeup air needs to come in underneath that, somewhere within a close range. So typically makeup air can come up underneath the stove, work its way up through the stove or somewhere else for that makeup air, and the ventilation is above that. It's the same thing with the sauna. I'm building a sauna now for some clients, and the makeup air, the clean air intake is low, down below the heater, in fresh air that way, and then it expels just a few feet high above inside the sauna on the opposite wall. So makeup air typically has to be lower than your exhaust air. So as long as you do that, you should be fine. Okay. Question on permit. I had my permit Red line today. What's the best method of getting plan revised? The city is saying it needs an engineer now because it wasn't complete at submittal. If you don't have engineered stamp plans, you'll need those. That's probably what they're asking for. I don't know where you're building. Again, tell me where you're building. It kind of dials me in a little bit. This is Arizona. If you have any recommendations. Yeah, Arizona is kind of a stickler. They have a lot of requirements for building down there. So yeah, if you don't have a stamped engineered plans, you'll need those. And then your architect should be on the dole for making the corrections needed on the architectural plans. Okay. But do your architectural changes first, then have him send the updated plans to the engineer, and then the engineer can make his corrections if they need to, and then you submit the new plans. Okay. Okay. How much is a normal price for permit fixes? Oh, should be part of the price. The architect should do the site plan, elevations, all that, and they should get it done as per the price unless they have it stipulated otherwise in their contract. Just ask them and find out. There was an ice and rain barrier, but no weed poles at the bottom of the wall. What wall are we talking about? Rain barrier.
The walls with the leaks, the power wash.
Oh, they probably didn't put any J channel at the bottom of that wall. And so as a result, when water works its way into that stone structure, it usually hits a J channel at the bottom, and you have at least a 3/4 inch gap between the J channel and concrete, or at least 4 inches between the J channel and the grade, dirt grade. That way water seeps its way out. Keep in mind that J channel that's holding the stone, that's the bottom structure of your masonry product, that weep hole needs to be below the foundation level. Meaning if you've got your stem wall here and your frame structure on top, that J channel has to be below that. So if water does work its way down, it's below the foundation and it weeps and hits the ground like that. But if it's above that, then that water can literally weep and work its way into the substrate, into the framing structure of the home, which is why I always tell my guys to make sure that that J channel is below all that. Okay. Hope that helps. And the code is 3/4 inch or thereabout. If you have a slab porch and you've got stucco or stone, you need to have at least a 3/4 inch clearance so that air and water movement can take place under that area. Okay.
Okay, this is back to that drain line. So it is a drain line.
Yeah, it should be a problem.
Overwhelm the septic.
Yeah, you've got a P trap right there, and that shouldn't be a problem. They're all going into the same place anyway. All that water and all that waste is going into the same place anyway. So as long as you have a P trap there, you're fine.
And it won't overwhelm the septic because it's all going the same place. The septic should have been sized for the house.
Yeah, the septic should have been sized for that anyway. No, you can't overwhelm the septic. Keep in mind, the septic is a big tank, and then there's these leach fields that are past the tank. So garbage comes in, the heavy solids fall into the tank, and they decompose and decompose and decompose, while all the liquids run through, and they can go right out into the leach field. And the earth filters that. The earth takes care of all the water. So you really can't overload a septic unless you have an NFL football team come there and they have a pizza for 50 hours straight. And then they're overloading the septic and it can't biodegrade that much mass that fast. So just keep in mind the tank collects large waste. The rest of it is the leach field, and the earth filters that out. Okay. Building a home with 33 windows in Canada in June, thinking about geothermal adds 35K. I've cut the gas line and want to go green. A heat pump could work too, though temps hit 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Geo versus traditional HVAC. Both of them are going to require electricity to run. Okay, now think about that. A lot of people don't think about that, and they think that they're preppers and they're going to get ready for doomsday. And we've got geothermal, but if the power's off, your geothermal is still not going to work. And I'm not a fan of geothermal because I haven't seen the cost savings fast enough. Now, you say 35,000. I can think of 1,000 things to put 35,000 into and let that sit over a 10-year period, and I'll get a better return on my money than anything I would do to the home. Like if you put 35,000 in silver this time last year, how much do you think that 35,000 would be worth? More than double. All right, think about that. You have to be business savvy. You have to say to yourself, I've got 35K. What do I buy? What do I do? Do I do it with more efficiency? Yeah, but that's kind of a dead proposition. Or can I put it into something else that it's going to maintain that 35 plus grow and improve its actual standing? So now I have the money to compensate for regular electrical and higher utility bills because I've got something that's actually generating revenue for that, or I have the savings for that. So I've seen people, I have a friend of mine who put in a solar or a solar array on her house. It was like $65,000. She won't see the benefit for 15, 20 years. And she realizes that, but she wanted it anyway because it has a battery pack. And the battery pack allows her to have power when everything else goes to the toilet. And she just likes that peace of mind. And so you can pay a heavy price for a peace of mind, and it can be very expensive. Me, I'd rather just go buy some gold and sit on it for a year and do much better, especially in the economics today, than putting into that. So it's just my comment. I hope you take it the way you want. Okay. If I'm doing a duct mini split system, what is the best way to hook up a strain to my plumbing system so we don't get smelly air in the attic? There's a condensate line that can just go right inside that line, and it's all sealed up. And that, if they can do that, all the better. If they can't, and it's just dropping into an open air thing, does that open air drain have a P trap down below? So you can fill it up with the condensate drip, but you're not going to have any fumes. So either it's got to be sealed directly into the pipe, or there's a P trap that keeps the fumes from coming out. It's got to be one of those two. More than likely, if you can take it directly outside, let it do its thing outside, all the better. But if you don't have access to outside, find a way to put it inside. And some codes require that. Okay. Find out what your local code is. Hi, Keith. Any thoughts on Studer vents? The Studer vent is in the event that you can't take a vent up through the roof. If you can't take a vent up through the roof, then you vent it inside. And what that basically does is it doesn't expel air, it sucks in air, but it doesn't allow it to go. It's only one way. It's like a backflow device. In a garden, you don't want to have chlorinated water being, that's fertilized, backflowing or backtracking into the water system. It's the same design. A Studer vent just allows for air to move one way, and that's sucking air into the pipe so it drains properly. And I've used them a lot, believe it or not. Sometimes if I have a shower down here and I have a massive open space upstairs and I can't get that vent all the way up through all that open space, let's put a Studer vent in. So it works out. It's fine. They're very popular.
Mama. Okay, this next one has multiple, so just keep reading, okay?
Okay. For baseboards, I'm using 1x7 pine. Should I go with MDF instead? That's the question. pre-primed on the 1X, 1X. Pre-primed pine, not sure about finger jointing. I would go with the MDF. Unless you're building a cabin up in the mountains and you want that wood look. Pine is not it's a very soft wood, very soft. So when a vacuum hits it, you're going to see the dents. The MDF can handle it a lot better, and it's smoother. And based upon the designs you have, you can get any design you want. And it's not going to bow. It's not going to pull away from the wall. It's going to be a stable force, especially when it's pre-primed. With a lot of other wood products out there, especially pine, it's just going to do its thing. There's no stabilizer in pine at all. And so I'm not a fan of using pine on a baseboard. So that's my take. Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll get going here. This is from AK Fisher 508. I'm building in Alaska and have managed R40 in the walls and R70 is great. I am 70 plus and the kids will inherit the house. I'm spending dollars now so their heating costs will be minimal in the future, which is futu. I commend you for that. I think that's invaluable, mainly because you're in Alaska. The cold is so insane that R40 in the walls and the R70 in the ceilings is going to be a real plus for them over time. And it's almost like in a situation like that, I've seen some research where it was so cold, they just ran a hairdryer just to heat up everything to offset some cold when there's very little money for full heating of the home. But it only works if you have that thermal envelope that's really keeping in a lot of that energy inside the home. But I love thinking like that. My entire house here is wrapped with 1.5 inches of mineral wool, which is an additional R6.32 or so, in addition to the R30 I have in the walls. So I've got an R36 wall, and people just don't think like that. I think like that because I love insulation. I love it, love it, love it. The more insulation I can get, the better I am. So great. I commend you for that one. I've heard that MDF is the stuff that can lose shape when it gets wet versus real wood. Yes, that's true.
Okay, so the Windsor, Brady's are you familiar with the Windsor one?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so the Windsor one product, that's a difference.
There's some product that's a mixture of wood particles and PVC. And it's basically a PVC product, but they build it for the outside. I've been seeing a lot of people. That's something to think about if you're interested in that. But, even wood will absorb moisture, to be honest with you. If you can install that baseboard so there's a little bit of a gap between the baseboard, like a 1/4 inch between the baseboard and the tile, then that should help substantially. I wouldn't try to take it right down flush. Have a little bit of a gap, and that should help out to keep it aired out and not absorbing moisture. Okay. We'll take 1 or 2 questions because I've got a meeting I've got to get to. Building in Canada, very large windows. The vinyl guys say guys can't do it. I'll tell you why. So I have to go with either fiberglass or aluminum. Fiberglass is more expensive than aluminum, but they're saying fiberglass will last more. Thoughts? No, it won't. The aluminum is going to last longer. Aluminum has a thermal break in it. I'm going to do a video on some aluminum windows I'm installing in a home, and they aren't painted. They're straight up aluminum, almost an industrial look, and they're going to last forever on this home. So I'd go with the aluminum on that one. So we'll take one more question and we've got to go. Alexa, thank you for all your expertise. I'm fully remodeling my house. We'll try to take your advice and not do all the work by myself like I did in last 3 times. Yeah, don't do it like you did it last time 3 times. So let's just do one more question. I think Brady had something to say. Windsor one is what's used in high-end multi-million dollar homes here. It's pricey, but good. It's Keith said, go pine and easy, but that can also easily be repaired. Yeah, true. Very good. Okay, everybody, we're at the end of our hour. Thank you, everyone. We'll be here again next. Hi, Kinsey. That's not my Kinsey. That's little Kinsey. That's Greer. We'll be here next Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Have your questions ready. Have your question ready. Go to howtobuildyourownhome.com. The link is right there. You can contact the instructors. Send me a question. I'll print it up and I'll answer that question first. Luckily, we didn't have any questions today. We have a ton of questions from regular students. You guys take care, and we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.